When we think of posture, we tend to think of our back, our neck and shoulders, right? But our lower body is actually an important part of our posture, especially the position of our pelvis. In fact, you could say that good posture begins with your pelvis. So our spine is in this S shape, but when one part of this S curve is misaligned, then the other curves are also affected. Everything in your body is connected. So today we are going to focus on our pelvis and hips and a muscle that wraps all the way around called the psoas. Okay? And all you need is a blanket, and it's optional. Start lying down on your back with your blanket within reach. And you can bend your knees and plant your feet and take your hands on your low belly. And then we'll start to move our pelvis into some pelvic tilts. So go ahead and arch your low back up off the ground. So your hips stay down, but it's like you're just rocking forward on your pelvis, tilting it forward. And you should be able to slide your hand underneath your low back. And then do the opposite of that. We're going to rock back and gently press the low back down on the floor and tuck the tailbone underneath us. So play between or move between those two positions really slowly. Take your time. Every time you exhale, you can bring a little core engagement into this. So gently drawing your low belly down towards the spine. And then on the inhale, you can soften a little bit. Next time you exhale, you can just come to a nice neutral spine in between those 2 points and take your blanket if you have it. Again, this is optional if you don't have one nearby. And you can choose the height of the blanket here. And go ahead and lift your hips up off the mat and then bring the blanket right under your low back, top of the tailbone, your sacrum area. And then lower your hips down on the blanket. Hug your right knee up into your chest and then stretch your left leg out long on the mat. So your hips are just elevated just a little bit. And if you feel like you want more, we're going for a nice opening down the front of the left leg, the stretched out leg. If you feel like you want more sensation, you can even put your hips up on a block to lift up even higher, or just fold the blanket up higher. Now, as we hug this right knee in, make that left leg very active. So think of flexing through the foot, pressing through the heel. Gently let that leg melt down into the floor as we tuck our tailbone. So if you can, just like we did in those pelvic tilts just a moment ago, kind of curl your tailbone under you as you rest here and breathe. Okay, and then before we move on to the other side, take your right hand on your right knee and guide that knee around in big hip circles. Go the other direction. Okay, and then we can just put that foot down, bring the left knee into our chest, hug it in tight, and stretch the right leg out long on the mat. Again, let's tuck or curl our tailbone under us a little bit. Make that right leg super active, pressing through the heel, and then letting the leg melt down into the mat the best you can. So don't force the knee down if it's popped up, but just a little gentle pressure. Hug the left knee in. If you feel like you need more space here with this knee into your chest, you can open it out to the left towards your armpit a little bit and take a few slow breaths here. And then we'll rest our right arm and begin to guide the left knee around in circles, getting some circular motion through your left hip joint. Other way. Okay, and then put that foot down with the knee bent and also bend the right knee. And now you can lift your hips and slide that blanket out from under your hips if you're using it. And then come on up to a seat or a seated position with your legs out in front of you. So lots of space between your feet here. And then lean back a little bit, lift up through the chest. Knees are bent. Start some seated windshield wipers here. So the knees just fall side to side. And if you want to challenge your hip mobility just a little more, you can sit up taller here, more on top of your pelvis. And if you really want to challenge your hip mobility, try bringing your hands together in front of your chest, not using your hands for support. But you don't have to choose the hardest version. Pick what feels best in your body. I'm traveling up towards you here. Okay, and then come around to hands and knees. And we're going to do a little bit of low lunging here today, so you might want a blanket under your knees or some kind of support, knee pad, whatever you like to use. Start in tabletop position with your joints stacked, shoulders over wrists, hips over knees. From here, lower your belly down so you're tilting your pelvis forward, open the chest and lift your gaze just a little bit. Take a breath in and then round your spine as you breathe out. Our cat-cow spinal movement. Keep moving like that, and I want your focus to be on the movement of the pelvis and initiating each movement, each pose by starting the movement with the pelvis. So tuck it under as you're rounding and then feel the rest of your spine round with it. And then tilt the pelvis forward as we come into that back bend and notice the spine extend and open. We'll all take one more breath in as we arch up and then find your neutral spine as you exhale. Now step your right foot in front of you. Okay, and then start on your fingertips. You can always put blocks under your hands if you want a little extra lift here. Start our gentle rock forward into a lunge here. And then shift your hips back into a half split. Working towards a straight front leg. It's okay if it doesn't straighten all the way. And go ahead and move between those two positions just a few more times. Keeping the spine long, trying not to flex the spine, round the spine too much. And the next time you come into your lunge, let's set it up for stability. So you can start by bringing your hands to your knee and backing off so the knee is above the ankle. And then if you want to adjust your stance at all, you can. You can bring that front foot in a little bit. Gently lengthen the tailbone down. And our hips are right above that back knee. Okay? And then if you feel stable here, go ahead and take your arms and sweep them up so the fingers are behind your heads. So you have little wings here with your elbows. On your inhale, we're going to open the chest into a back bend, open those elbows out as far as they will go. And then on your exhale, round the spine, bring the elbows in like they're going to touch. They don't have to touch, and tuck your chin down into your chest. Now with this position comes a tuck of the tailbone. Okay, and then inhale, open the chest into your back bend. Exhale, round and tuck your tailbone. Inhale to open. Exhale to round. 2 more, breathe in. And breathe out. Breathe in. And breathe out, noticing what you feel in the front of your hip here, of that back leg. Now, this time, just sit up tall here in the lunge, really rooting through that front foot still, and extend your arms all the way up into full Anjaneyasana low lunge. Now, I would like you to tuck the tailbone here, and then with that support, with that stability of the pelvis, then shift your hips forward a little bit. As you shift your hips forward, lift the chest into a back bend and breathe. Imagine the front of your back hip opening as your spine lifts up tall. One more full inhale here. Exhale, hands down to frame your front foot. We'll step that leg back. Woo, and take a brief child's pose here. Hips to heels, melting your head down. Any arm variation you like. And then let's draw ourselves back up and bring the left foot in front, however you'd like to get it there. Take your time to adjust. Make sure you have some good space between that front foot and the back knee. Up on your fingertips or up on blocks for a little extra lift. And then let's shift our hips forward and then shift back into a half split. Keeping the spine open and long. Something you can do to help remind yourself of that is to think of pinching your shoulder blades back together just lightly as you move. And that will prevent some of that rounding. Okay, and the next time we come into our lunge, let's set it up for stability. The knee above the ankle. Hands on top of your knee to start, and then lift yourself up and back so we're not hanging out into the hip. Tuck your tailbone, just lightly, lengthen it down. And then when you are situated here, planting through that front foot, bring the arms up and behind your neck. Inhale, open the heart, press those elbows back into your back bend. Exhale, round your spine, tuck the tailbone. Inhale to open. Exhale to round. Inhale. And exhale. Just paying attention to the front of that back hip, any sensation you might notice. We're also obviously getting some wonderful spine mobility and shoulder mobility here. Let's do one more round. Great, and then on your inhale, let's sit up tall and then stretch your arms up to the sky. Keep the tailbone tucked and then send your hips forward as the chest continues to lift. Breathe deep. And then on your next exhale, hands down to frame the foot. Step back to hands and knees. Child's pose. Rest for a moment. From here, let's come on up and make our way into downward facing dog. So give yourself a lot of space between your hands. Tuck your toes and send your hips up and back. And I'm going to move my blanket aside because I'd like to use it in a second. And we're done pretty much being on our hands and knees. So in your down dog, you can pedal it out, bending one knee at a time. Really send the hips as far up and back as you can to lengthen your spine here, ears in between the shoulders. And then let's kick our right leg strongly up to the sky as we breathe in. As we breathe out, bend the knee and bring the knee through towards your right wrist. So you're shifting your shoulders over your wrists and then release that leg down to the floor. Slide the back leg back a little bit. Now, this right foot, this front foot should be a little out to the left of you, not right underneath you. And then I'd like you to come up on your fingertips here. So we're going to find some extension in half pigeon rather than melt down into it today so we can get some opening through the hip. Now, this is where the blanket might come in handy, especially if your joints don't like this for any reason, your knee feels pressure. I like to put a little blanket under my right hip for support, the lifted hip. And then you can kind of melt down into that a little bit. Okay, lifting through the chest. trying to tuck the tailbone a little bit to keep from sinking too much in the low back. But if this is too much for your back here and this much spinal extension, just walk your hands forward just a little bit, just enough to take that compression out of the low back. And then we will breathe here for a moment. If this doesn't bother your low back, I want you to lift up out of your fingertips, open the chest, breathe deep into the rib cage. Okay, and then if you have a prop under your hip, you can remove it and kind of shift your weight over to the right side. Bring this back leg all the way around. So you plant the foot on the other side of the knee. So we're going to set up for a seated spinal twist. If this is not comfortable for you in this position and your hips feel a little wonky and off center, go ahead and straighten out the bottom leg like this so you can ground through your sit bones. Otherwise, keep this knee bent, hug in really tight with the shoulders down. Take a breath in here where you are, and then a breath out as you twist to the left. Left hand behind you, gazing back behind your left shoulder, feeling the crown of your head lift up to the sky, and then check in with your breath. And I like to use this right hand, right arm, to hug the knee in towards me to get some extra opening through the outside of the hip. But you can also hook the elbow if you prefer, or do any variation like that. On your next exhale, return through center, shake your legs out, and let's come back around to hands and knees. Setting up for down dog, our last one of the practice, our second and last one. Get the length in your spine and then kick that left leg up now strongly and as high as you can. And then bring the left knee through towards that left wrist. Shift your weight forward and release the knee down. Slide your back leg back. And then adjust your stance or your positioning of the front foot if you'd like. Just make sure it's not completely underneath you. And then lift up out of your spine, out of your hips. Check in. If you want a little extra support under that hip, take it. Guess what? There's no crime in making your practice a little more comfortable. You're still getting the benefits of the pose. Again, if your low back feels compressed here, first try to engage your core, lift up strongly out of the hips, but then if it's still not liking it, just lean forward just a little bit, just enough to make your back feel better. Otherwise, we're in a strong back bend, spinal extension up here. And then on your next exhale, release the prop out from under your hip if you're using it, and just lean your weight over to the left, sweep the back leg around to the other side of the knee, shift until you're somewhat even on your sit bones, and we'll sit up tall here. Shoulders down, back of the neck long. Take a breath in where you are, and then a breath out as you twist to the right. So our spine is really nice and long here, but our shoulders are melting down. They're actively dropping down. For some reason in seated spinal twists, I notice a tendency of everyone to bring their shoulders up to your ears. So just check in there. Find some extra ease and softness around your neck and shoulders as you breathe. And then on your next exhale, return through center. We can shake out our legs one last time. And then find a comfortable seat for a moment. Any comfortable seat. Shuffle your shoulders down if there's tension there. I invite you to close your eyes just for a moment. Practice. Feel into your body and feel into your hips and your pelvis, and notice if you do feel any different there. Maybe you do feel a little more freedom. Maybe you do feel a little more open in that area. Bring your palms together, touching in front of your heart. The light in me sees the light in you. Thank you for joining me today. Namaste. If you enjoyed this practice, then you'll love my free 7-day Yoga for Posture challenge. Each day we explore simple ways to move with more freedom, feel lighter in your body, and of course, improve your posture. You can sign up to join us for free by going to yogaforposturechallenge.com or just click the link down in the description.